Welcome everyone to the Green Living Series Edible Spring Greens Workshop. My name is Sheila Coughlin, and I'm the Public Education and Outreach Coordinator for the City of Federal Way Surface Water Management Division. And my work focuses primarily on stormwater. Stormwater is rain that runs off surfaces like driveways and roofs and pavements, and it can't be absorbed into the ground. So instead, the water flows along, and with it collects oil, litter, pesticides, herbicides, and other pollutants. And that water with the pollutants ends up in storm drains. And storm drains lead this untreated water directly into our local water bodies. And it's in fact the leading source of pollution to Puget Sound. So you may be wondering what gardening has to do with stormwater. Well, gardens and yards or soft surfaces are a great way to create spaces where rainwater is absorbed or slowed down before it reaches local water bodies. And at the same time, it delivers a lot of enjoyment and food for you, and it supports the bees and the butterflies and other wildlife. Tonight, our presentation is sponsored by the City of Federal Way, and it's made possible by the Solid Waste and Recycling Division and with support from the South King Tool Library, as well as the Hazardous Waste Management Program in King County and the King County Solid Waste Division. And aside, you may have noticed at the bottom of your screen, we have closed captioning to accommodate any of our listeners in need of auditory assistance. And we are also able to provide interpretation services. So please let me know for future workshops if you or someone you know would like that option. Amanda, the director of the King Tool Library, is here with us tonight as our Zoom master, and she'll be providing technical assistance to you during the presentation if needed. Amanda, you want to say hello?
Yeah, thanks, Sheila. Hi, everybody. I am Amanda Miller. I am the Executive Director of the South King Tool Library, or SKITTLE for short. I am local to Federal Way, and I'm really eager to learn everything tonight. But if you haven't heard of the Tool Library, I'm really glad you can join us, and I can share a little bit about that. We offer tools and training, information, and educational experiences, and have a demonstration rain garden that I'm very excited to learn what I can eat when I'm weeding it. But we also lend out tools to help facilitate your gardening, yard care, DIY, upcycling, and ambitious hobbyist needs. So thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. So toward the end of the presentation, and actually I'll probably be putting it in the middle, toward the middle of the presentation, you'll see a survey link in the chat. Please fill it in. We really want to improve our workshops. It's only 5 questions and it's multiple choice. It won't take you more than a minute. In addition, a gift of a wild tea blend harvested from Melissa's farm is going to be given to the first 75 City of Federal Way residents that registered for the workshop. And details about that will follow in an email to the recipients. I'll send that out either this evening or tomorrow morning, so keep an eye out for that. So our presenter for Edible Spring Greens is Melissa Meyer. Melissa is a community-trained herbalist and indigenous farmer. She lives with her family in Tacoma, and she comes from the Tsimshian people in northern BC. She served as the traditional plants practitioner at Seattle Indian Health Board for 3 years, and she teaches and grows plants and food on her farm, Rose Island Farm. Please hold your questions till the end. If you put them in the chat box, I'll read them out loud at the end of the presentation, or you're welcome to unmute and read them yourself. And without further ado, here's Melissa.
Oh, thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Amanda. This is really sweet to be with you all tonight. First, I just want to acknowledge that we're on Puyallup and Duwamish territory, and we have the privilege of cohabitating these lands that have been stewarded by these indigenous folks for the last, I don't know, 5,000-10,000 years. A lot of these plants that are still showing up here, especially the wild ones, are because of these indigenous folks who tended these plants and cultivated a number of them. That could also be argued. Some people say, you know, the plants cultivated us. They trained us to look after them. They trained us to mind them and tend to them. So I live on a 1-acre farm here in Tacoma. It's called Rose Island Farm. I think it's in your email or details, and feel free to check out our website. You can follow us on Instagram. We're always doing something. You can peek. I mean, I can't hide what I'm doing, but I'm an herbalist. So this is my crazy house. There's always some kind of plant that I'm working on. It's absolutely horrible. I don't know if you can see down there. I have so many plants going, some of my apothecary. So that is my practice as an herbalist. I'm constantly cultivating and wild harvesting to put together plant supports for people. So yeah, if that's something you're interested, feel free to reach out. But without further ado, I want to talk about what's edible in your backyard. I think the first thing that I would say is really know your land, really know what you're working with. There was, I think Elizabeth Moore asked earlier, is one of the parks in Federal Way sprayed? That's such a good question. I want you to think that way all the time. I would err on the side of more of the urban spaces would be like sports fields, schools, right? Some of the businesses that want to be manicured and really pretty, those spaces steer clear. If you know about your own backyard, you know what you're not putting in there, what you're not spraying, then you know you're dealing with some decent spaces that aren't contaminated, don't have pesticides or things like that. I would say all of the wild spaces, especially the parks, aren't sprayed. So federal parks, like the national parks, definitely not. And if they are, they would usually close to the public, and there'll be a lot of signage talking about what they're doing there and making, you know, they're usually trying to deal with Scots broom or poison hemlock. Those are usually two of the big species that they would close it down to treat. But those are so specific. They'll absolutely deal with just exactly that plant. They won't do a whole spray, if that makes any sense. So really know your backyard. If you are going into wild spaces, head further in, away from the roads, off the trails. You know, doggies usually are walking in these spaces. They're doing their thing. So yeah, I always kind of err on that side as well. Yeah. And I'll answer any questions at the end. So hopefully Amanda or Sheila, please cue me when I have to stop, because I'll just keep going.
Sounds good, Melissa.
Yeah, I'm gonna start PowerPoint. So I'm gonna start the screen share. And then I'm gonna press play. Hopefully you can hear everything. Can everybody see?
Yeah, looks great, Melissa.
Great. So edible spring greens. So spring in the Pacific Northwest, it erupts really quickly around here with lots of new growth. Wild plants begin to appear in disturbed landscapes that offer their healing qualities to help amend the soil. So there's actually a wisdom between the plants that are showing up. You know, it's like, oh darn, the dandelions are here. Oh darn, and right after the dandelions, the succession is the buttercups. There is a wisdom around it. All of these plants are trying to heal these spaces. All of these spaces were wild at one point. You know, now we're here, now we're living here, and we're, creating our yards and we're building our homes. The plants don't recognize that. They're still trying to just do their thing. So each plant is doing its part to bring homeostasis back to the earth and its landscapes. So it's no wonder these plants are also so great for humans and animals as well. So let's learn a few of these wild edibles that are in our own backyard. Let's see. And of course, I gave you a hint. Dandelion is such a big, important one. Dandelion in the spring, it shows up with its sunny flowering faces appearing all at once. They're everywhere right now. My yard's full of them. We have a new pasture that we're trying to bring under cultivation. The dandelion are having their way with our pasture right now. These common weeds thrive in cracks in sidewalks, grassy lawns, well-tended gardens, abandoned city lots, and even mountain meadows. As an herbalist and wild foods educator, I've come to view them as an amazing gift instead of a weedy curse. All parts of the dandelion are edible and have a hefty nutritional profile. In general, dandelion roots, leaves, and stems all exude a milky white sap. That's the telltale signature of a dandelion. There's so many ones that are false, like that kind of like tall, wiry one with the small flower at the top. Also, I think that one also has like the fuzzy leaves down the bottom. That's a falsie. You don't want to be eating that one. Yeah, I'm going to show you a video eventually. So identifying dandelion. For such a common weed, dandelion is easy to misidentify. The leaf, many look-alike plants have similar leaves, but dandelion leaves are hairless. They have toothed edges, hence the French name Dandelion or lion's tooth. Leaves and hollow flower stems grow directly from the rootstock. Okay, so it's not separate and they're all like a huge clump. So flowers, there's only one flower per stem versus branching look-alike plants, which most people think of as a single dandelion flower is actually hundreds of flowers growing together on a single base. These open to the sunlight and close in dark, rainy weather. Each dandelion can produce more than 5,000 seeds per year, which form wish balls that are carried away with the slightest breeze or breath. So that's why they're just like so abundant and they're so hard to get rid of. You might as well start using them. You might as well start incorporating them into your diet. As an herbalist, I always encourage folks to be curious about which plants you're constantly bumping into and seeing on the regular basis. Usually that's, and like for me, that's, the universe's way of saying, you need these in your diet. This is essential for your healing right now, whether you believe it or not. Dandelion's medicine is really all about helping our livers. It's about waking us up after this winter time when we've been kind of stagnant. We haven't moved as much. Maybe things have been hanging around in our bodies. This starts to flush that stuff out. So if you've got dandelion on your property, it's probably time for a liver tune-up. Where dandelions grow. Dandelion has followed in the footsteps of pilgrims for millennia. It's one of our first lettuce, and it's been enjoyed on every continent. With over 250 species, it can thrive almost anywhere, including pristine mountain meadows, barren open fields, and even cracks in cement. Dandelion helps to improve soil quality. The roots draw minerals up from deep layers of earth, concentrating them back in the whole plant. So when the plant dies back, it deposits these minerals on the topsoil. Roots also aerate hard packed soil and create pathways for water to enter. So that's another signature of dandelion. If you're starting to see them, your soil needs help. It's telling you that, you know, it's starting to be depleted, and it's adding its nutrients back, and it's trying to break it up so that water can get through. You know, our soils can get really compact, like Sheila was talking about earlier. We want our soils to be healthy enough to start taking in some of the water that's coming through our properties. We don't want it just to float across. So Dandelion's doing a really great job trying to get water to hang around and be absorbed in your land. Where are we? Yeah, the flowers are pollinated by over 90 insects. So that's also another telltale, because we have so little biodiversity now. Remember, these were wild spaces, right? And there was tons and tons of plants, and there was ancient forests and all these biodiversity. Dandelion is like one of those wild older plants that, you know, attract a lot of these insects. I always think of folks who say, well, I only have ants on my property. I'm going, dear goodness, if ants are at the top of the food chain at your property, there's not enough biodiversity. So, you know, some of these plants are attracting these different insects back to create that healthy ecosystem. Dandelion as a food. So the leaves, they're very high in vitamins and minerals, including potassium, calcium, magnesium, iron, and vitamins A, B, and C. Dandelion is higher in vitamin A than any other garden plant. Dandelion leaves can be a gourmet green if you know when to harvest and how to prepare them. My goodness, I saw it at Whole Foods today. You see a little bundle there for like $3. It's like, this is in my backyard. I don't have to pay for this. Because some of these vitamins that I've listed, like vitamin A, these vitamins get absorbed and taken up in the body through fat. They're fat soluble vitamins. So if you're eating the dandelion, slather it with olive oil to get all of this good stuff back. That's why it's so great sauteed or used in a salad. While they taste a little bitter, they add flavor, variety, as well as concentrated nutrients. I think of this plant because I feel like our Western diet, we don't have enough bitters anymore. When I think about the bitters that we do have, like coffee, that's like one of the main bitters we have. Traditionally, we had bitters a lot more, and actually, you know, our palates have lost that ability to taste bitter. Bitter is so important in our bodies. It stimulates your kidneys, stimulates your pancreas, stimulates your liver. We need these in our body on the regular. If we're having sluggish organs, this is a great helper. This is a great healer. We need things to be flowing and, you know, optimum in our bodies. So let's welcome bitter back. You know, I'm always trying to get people excited about wild foods and just this, because it seems like we've only been able to taste sweet and then salty and sort of nothing in the middle. And this helps open our palates again. Like, I don't let my children have a lot of sweets. We've been having a lot of these wild greens and wild berries for a long time because I want their palates to be open to try new things. Bitter is such an important one. And I feel like you have to deliberately put it back in a Western diet. They can be steamed, sauteed, boiled, incorporated into dips, casseroles, and soups. I like to dry them. I drink them in an herbal tea. Teas were like the main way all people got plants into their bodies. Traditionally, our ancestors would have eaten about 12 to 20 plants a day. We are nowhere near that anymore. Unless you're vegan, you are nowhere near that. And, you know, I just feel like there's such a limited variety of greens that we can access, that drying and dehydrating your own gives you that diversity and longevity through the winter. So herbal teas are a great way to incorporate these nutrients and bitters back into your diet. I wanted to talk about the roots, the dandelion roots. They contain up to 25% inulin, which is a prebiotic. Prebiotics, we know, are, you know, the superfood for our gut biome. We have 10 million bacteria that live in our gut, which is, you know, directing our brain most of the time. What is it? It's something like 75% of our hormones are in our guts. So if we're not friends with this microbiome there, and we're not giving these guys what they prefer, we're going to be moody, we're going to be grumpy, we're going to be tired, and we're not going to have really good digestion. When I was talking about how our ancestors ate, you know, 12 to 20 vegetables a day, that's what this bacteria, our gut biome, is desiring. You know, when we don't have that much fiber and greens going in, we're not keeping these guys healthy, if that makes sense. There's one strain of bacteria that lives in your gut. Its one and only function is to keep your heart healthy. So if you're not feeding it the way it prefers, it's not going to do its job. So we really want to be in good relationship with, you know, these friendly guys in there. And the roots are just one of their preferred foods. So it's a great way to start incorporating this back. I can't remember if I have in the video, I make a dandelion latte. So hopefully this works. I'm gonna press play and I'm gonna mute myself so you can hear me. Maybe, I'm not sure if I can mute myself, but let me try and press play and see if you can hear it.
So I just wanted to show you another spring green. This is a dandelion, a true dandelion. I have the pleasure of being in my friend's farm where they actually farm dandelions. So this is a really easy cheat. But this is how you know which one you're working with. It feels like lettuce. It's not fake and fuzzy. And this is what its root structure looks like. There's always a big long one. And when you dig it, it's like a carrot. You go straight down all the way around it to harvest it.
That's our son.
This is a super easy way to clean the dandelion. I just kind of do like a prune anything that I see that's not vibrant and green. If it's brown, I usually pull it off. My herbal teacher says don't go too crazy trying to get a lot of this dirt out of the roots here. You just do the best you can, because a lot of this has vital nutrients in it too. And when it dries, a lot of it falls off. So this is how I best like to process the dandelions in big bundles like this. You can see the different root structures here heading in and creating all of these roots. These are what's pulling up all the minerals from the soil and depositing it. And usually this is loaded with worms because they come for the milkshake. That's all the nitrogen they're fixing into the soil. So back to dandelion processing. You can see I've been washing and cleaning all the dandelion roots. What I want to say about it is if it's not longer than at least your pinky finger, it doesn't have enough medicine in it. So you can see I'm just trying to keep all the big chunks because it's got all the good medicine in it. I have a total spoiler. This is not what your dandelion roots are going to look like. These roots have been cultivated. That's why they're so aggressive. They have complete rain in the soil where they are growing. So they're trying to get the most they can out of the soil and into the soil. So when you get it, you're going to find gnarly, wiry roots with maybe just like one big long root. You can see this one, it's not too healthy down there at the end. I'd actually just cut that off. Probably not too healthy to keep. But that's the difference. This is a cultivated variety. It grew in its own field. It didn't have to compete with anything. So that's why the roots look like this. You're gonna see them look more like just one or two big roots trying its best to compete with whatever plants are around it to get what it needs. I just wanted to show you that difference. So I don't have any fancy way that the plant offers its own. You can see in this one, this is so much of the signature of dandelion. You can see the milk coming out. That's from the roots. That's how you know you've got the real one. It's depositing its nitrogen into the soil. Usually when I harvest these, it's so full of worms because they're coming in for the milkshake. So all I do, separate the leaves, find a spot. I'm running out of room. That's my cheap and cheerful way to dry them. Nothing fancy. This will take about 2 weeks. If I had a wood stove, this would take 2 nights. But here we are, and they're well out of the way from the sun and direct sunlight. So now I'm just finally getting back to these dandelions, and I left them out to sort of dry for a couple of days. They're a little bit easier to work with. Chop them smaller to roast up in the oven. You can cut them small like this and just let them dry. And I'll show you what that looks like. But in the meantime, this is what it looks like to prep them to roast in the oven. Okay, these dandelions are all cut and ready to go into the oven. I'm going to put them at a really low temperature to roast them. I don't know how long I do it. I kind of do it by smell. I'll smell when it smells like it's cooked. It's probably going to be about 30 to 45 minutes. Wanted to also show you another thing that I do with dandelion roots. Because it's such good medicine for your liver, it's really good for your digestion. I put it in a tincture form. So this is some roots I must have harvested in March, and I've got it soaking in brandy. I'll soak it for 6 weeks, and then I'll strain it out, and I'll probably even boil that out as well. But the tincture I'll bottle up and share. I'm using my apothecary. So here's some of the roasted dandelions after they've been baked slowly in the oven. They're nice and dry. I might leave them out for another night. And then this is what I like to do. I like to grind them in my nut grinder and get them down to a fine amount. And now I'm going to show you something really special. I'll show you how to make a dandelion latte, because I'm crazy about these yummy things. So you start with some almond milk, not a lot, and like That's not even half a teaspoon, even less than that, because this is really earthy. Okay, so that's like a quarter teaspoon. Honey. This is just a teaspoon of honey. And then some hot water. It's already boiled. And then we're just gonna whip this up. And I'll show you something special. So after about 2 minutes, you can see how light and fluffy it's getting. And this is where I like to treat myself. My son bought me this fancy frother. This is just some coconut milk that's frothed up and yummy. And then I add the dandelion and honey and almond milk. The rocky stuff kind of settles to the bottom. Stir that up and just get ready to enjoy. This is also a great coffee alternative. Cheers.
I wish we could drink one together. I think you just have to get really creative to interrupt this Western diet and put bitters back into your diet. So here's a sweet, easy way. I also use the leaves. I mean, this is my old kitchen, my old house. I have a barn now where I hang plants. I have dehydrating hanging mats. I have an industrial size dehydrator. So a lot's changed, but it's cute watching these old videos. I think we filmed this before the pandemic, before we moved. So yeah, okay, I'll keep cruising along because time flies and we got to answer questions. Okay. Oh, I stopped at Dandelion because I want to introduce you to a couple more plants. Chickweed. We just are at the tail end of chickweed season. Stellarium Media. It's a common weed in gardens, city dirt patches, and can reach to at least a foot tall. They're tiny white star-shaped flowers. They've got 5 petals. They appear to have 10 because each petal is shaped like rabbit ears. So they go like that. Bright green leaves grow in opposite pairs. A single line of hair runs down the length of the stem, resembling a mohawk. That's how you know you've got chickweed. As the sun gets brighter and the days warmer, it dies back in open areas, but continues to thrive in shady, moist corners. So that's where you're going to find this, usually not in direct spaces. If you farm at a community garden, look in the corners, look in the shady spots. That's where you'll see this plant. It's a powerhouse of nutrients with 12 times more calcium, 5 times more magnesium, 83 times more iron, and 6 times more vitamin C than spinach. So it kind of, to me, it tastes like spinach. It has the same texture. I love the flowers as well. So no wonder that chickens and other green foraging animals love it, hence chickweed. And, you know, I think of these plants when they show up, they're right when your body needs it. We've had a stagnant winter. We might have eaten heavier stuff. We come out of comfort food season. And here we go. We get these big boosts of nutrients. Lots of people come to me as an herbalist going, I want to do a detox. I want to do a detox. And I always go, hang on a second. There usually isn't enough in our Western diet to support the needs of our bodies these days. So we have to go back to these wild spaces. So much of our soils have been cultivated over and over and over and over again. So they're being depleted. I can't remember what the numbers are like, something like we're only getting about 30% of the nutrition we are now than we were 20 years ago. So there's a major decline in what we're getting out of our foods these days. So, you know, these wild varieties bring in, you know, this superior level of nutrition. Young chickweed has a pleasant, mild flavor. Use scissors to harvest or trim the top couple of inches off more developed plants. Rinse if necessary. Usually they're pretty dusty. It will last for several days in the refrigerator when wrapped in a damp paper towel or placed in a paper bag. If the chickweed has a stringy, tough texture, it's too old to eat, and you'll know that. I like to add chickweed to salads, blend it in smoothies, make up pesto with it, and use it in sauces. I have really finicky kids, I always have, and so I always had to blend things. Everything got tossed in pasta salads, got grinded up and put in the meatloaf, or, you know, like I had to find all the crazy ways. And still we have a juicer, so we're always juicing at least 2-3 times a week, just to find ways to get it into the kids. So yeah, finely chopped chickweed gives an extra nutrient boost and a splash of color to eggs, quiche, pasta sauce, and lasagna. To preserve chickweed, place the tender greens in the blender with a little bit of water, blend it well, and pour it into ice cube trays. We did this a lot when we were growing on this community farm. It was like one of our beds every spring was just loaded with chickweed. We had to find ways to save it. So we would blend it up, put it in ice cubes, boom, those could get dropped into smoothies, those could get dropped into your soup, and now you have that nutrient boost. You can freeze and remove cubes, place them in freezer bags for later use. They can be added to smoothies and soups. Now, because I can't give up so much freezer space, I dry so much, and putting them back in herbal teas is a great way to get this into your body. Ooh, it's 1:45. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Cleavers, another spring green, which is a really great plant that is excellent for our lymphatic system. You can see, oh, I can't really point. Well, I can. You can see this is kind of its signature. It's got this base. I think it's also part of the mint family because it has kind of that square base. And it's really clingy and hairy. So it's usually in a big clump. Goodness, I hope you can hear me. My husband's out there mowing the lawn. So cleavers, oh good. Cleavers thrive in wet fields, forest floors, gardens, and back alleys. The leaves are pointed and clustered in whorls of 6 to 8 around the square stems. Tiny whitish green flowers have 4 petals. Fruits ripen in 2-lobed green nutlets that become brown when mature. The species name aperine comes from the Greek word for to seize, because cleavers have Velcro-like hairs on the leaf margins and stems that help it move upwards towards the sun. Kids know this plant real easy. They're always picking it and throwing it at each other and sticking it on their clothes. I love them being able to connect with the plants. I think it was like 10 years ago, and somebody asked me, how many plants can your children identify? And it was like, you know what? I bet you they can identify more logos than they can plants. And that's when it was like, okay, we've got work to do to reintroduce these back to our children. Eating cleavers. Cleavers are rich in chlorophyll and minerals, including silica, but it's covered in hairs that discourage foraging. You just find a way. I like picking them when they're really young. They're really green, super soft. As soon as they start to feel woody, that's when you know they're kind of too old. I mean, if you are going to work with them and they're starting to get woody, you got to use a blender and blend it down. All grazing animals eat cleavers, but they have to chew it for a long time. Young cleavers can be added to soups, sautés, and other dishes. Older plants become too hairy and fibrous. Spring cleavers can be pressed into a vibrant green juice that is reminiscent of wheatgrass. So harvest it by the handful, mash it up with your hands and squeeze it to get the juice out. You can also make cleaver juice by chopping up the herb and adding it to a blender with a little water, then strain it out. Cleaver's medicine in our body is, it's great for moving your lymphatic waters. So your heart moves your blood. It does all of that on your behalf. Your lymphatic system has no way to move those fluids. So, you know, when you're fighting a cold or an infection, your lymphatic system has to get to work. But in order for it to flush out, it needs heat, like a hot bath, or it needs movement. So if you're in a position where you can't move, a lot of us are in these COVID situations where, you know, we're housebound a lot more, we're not moving as much. Cleavers are a great way to start flushing those waters and keeping your immune system healthy. Yeah, and also I love dehydrating this plant as well. I'll extend its ability to be in my diet past spring. I always have some on hand when somebody is sick. I want those ice cubes. I want that fresh plant material dehydrated so I can give it to people when they're sick, or if they're having lymph or pancreas issues. This is when I want to have it. Do you think now is a good time to stop and ask questions or answer questions? I feel like I've been going for a while.
Oh, it's like, I think everyone is just so enjoying this, Melissa, but we do have a bunch of questions.
Okay.
So is this a good time for you to stop?
I think so.
Okay.
Let's start answering some of these.
Okay. There were some questions in the chat box. I'm going to read some out loud, but I encourage anyone who would like to ask Melissa a question to unmute and speak up. Okay, so here's one question. Well, actually, it's mine. Will you include that latte recipe and then I can send it up in the follow-up email? Could you send that
Absolutely.
to me? Excellent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay,
sounds
and then I
great.
forgot to say, so the roots, you can harvest them in the spring, you can harvest them in the fall. In the spring, they have less inulin. In the fall, they have a lot more. So if you're looking for it for that prebiotic gift, harvest them in the fall. Okay, just wanted to make that distinction. I mean, that's kind of how you track plant medicine in general. So when you're thinking about plant medicine, it's like, okay, everything's stored in the roots, that's where it starts. And then once the stems appear and the leaves appear, well, then the medicine's in the leaves. And then the berries appear, then the medicine's in the berries. When all those die back and it goes back to the roots, then it's back in the roots. So you follow the life cycle of that plant and harvest accordingly, okay?
Thank you, Melissa. I'm going to read out loud some of the questions.
Okay.
All right, so the next question was, dogwood trees often have a circle red pod that falls from the tree after flowering. Can those red pods be used?
Dogwood flowers. Wow, I would think so, but I haven't used it personally. I would make sure that it's a wild, not a cultivated variety. That would just be my thoughts. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Flowers are usually good. Flower medicine is usually for drying in the body. Like when I think of rose flowers, calendula, all of these different flowers, even the dandelion, I always think of them as, you know, helping us hold our waters, and it's more for drying in the body.
Thank you, Melissa. So the next question is, use this for the staghorn sumac flower pod. This person dried several last year but hasn't used them.
I haven't either, but I know that our people used it for dyeing materials, fabrics and such. So that's cool.
And another question, your favorite way to prepare dandelion roots?
Well, I gave you my dandelion recipe. I also like to use it with, what are those seeds? The ones that congeal, those little black.
Oh, like chia? Chia
Yes.
seeds?
Yeah. So I will like whip up the dandelion roots into my coconut milk, and then I'll add that to congeal with the chia seeds for like a pudding. And you can go crazy. You can add fruit to that. You can add maple syrup to that. Yeah, that's another great way to get it into your body, because it's kind of, it's got this gnarly texture that's really fun. Yeah.
Oh, here's a good one. Can I engage Melissa's expertise for walking, foraging, discovery walk on my place for family and friends? This is a superb presentation, and that was echoed by others.
Was that a question or was that just a comment?
Well, I guess the question is, are you available to do that kind of thing, foraging, discovery walks?
I have done consultations on people's properties, their farms or their personal properties. And I am available for a walk if you organize the crowd, and there's a fee. So yes.
I'll include in the follow-up email, I'll have
Perfect.
Melissa's contact information so people can reach out to her directly.
Yeah, it's all on my website too.
And the next question is, what is the best way to de-pesticide your yard?
Oh boy. The best way is to do your research. What was there before, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that kind of happened in Tacoma in the 70s and the 80s. I keep getting these things in the mail talking about the industries that were here. Just do your research. You know, what's happened on your land, and work with it accordingly.
You can also look up the life half-lives of the pesticides if you previously, used pesticides on your in your yard.
I'd also like to add a large part of what I do too, because pesticides get into stormwater with heavy rain, is we promote at the city natural yard care. I've got tons of resources and a lot of experience myself in natural yard care. So I'll include a link for natural yard care, include a link for information. So those of you who are interested can look into that.
Beautiful.
The next question is, when using Cleavers medicinally, if you have the ice cube, you put it in hot water and drink it as a tea?
You absolutely could. Absolutely. Teas are just the most natural way that we took it in. So yeah, and I mean, if you're trying to give it to somebody who's a little fussy, like a younger person, give a wallop of honey. Like, I always want these plants to be palatable. I want everybody's experience with them to be really good, so that it becomes habitual and it becomes really accessible.
And the next question is, if you were to suddenly find yourself in the woods today, what would you be able to eat besides dandelions, chickweed, and cleaver?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things right now. There's so many things. This is like so busy. Like, I can't stand it. There's like 20 different plants to be harvesting right now. It's just crazy. Yeah, there's so much. You can find these three for sure in the forest. There's so many edible leaves. There's edible roots, nettles. Gosh, Indian plum just had a big blast, right, of all their new leaves, which taste like cucumber and celery. It's just delicious. You've got elderberry flowers showing up in there right now. You've got maple blossoms. Like there's so many things. Yeah. I was gonna say, this is a really great resource if you're wanting to get in touch with learning about more plants in your area. This is a really great resource. Do you want to type that into the chat maybe, or?
The
Is
author
that
there.
the plants of the Pacific Northwest?
Yep. You can find this at a library. It's very easy to get a hold of.
I'll put that in the follow-up email too. That's one of my favorite Pacific Northwest plant guides.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Okay, can all edible plants be saved with the ice video method?
Say that again.
Can all edible plants be saved, like what you showed with the ice cube tray method? I think that's what the person was trying to ask. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that was the question.
Absolutely, you can. It just depends on what you're trying to save it for. I mean, like berries, I'm not going to want to put in an ice cube. The dandelion roots, for example, I wouldn't want to put in an ice cube because you're going to lose a lot of their medicine in the waters. You're going to want all of that right away. Dehydration, such a great way. I mean, you see how I do a lot of things. I dry and dehydrate so many things. They last longer. They have a shelf stable life of at least a year. So it gives me that longer time. And then I don't have to take up all that freezer space. But if you're trying to get it into your diet and you want to do the ice cube method, absolutely. I'm all about finding ways to get it into your body.
Thanks, Melissa. Hey, by the way, everybody, I put the in the chat. I've been sticking the link to the survey in there. We would really, really appreciate it if you would fill it out. Like I said, it's 5 questions, just less than a minute. It just really gives us feedback, lets us know that we're moving in the right direction and we're serving our community. So we would really appreciate that. Okay.
And you're gonna get
And
some wild
I found the book. Sorry, I found the book. It was by Jim Pojar, so I put that title and author in there.
Oh, thank you, Amanda.
I had a question too for you, Melissa. You said you dehydrated the dandelion leaves. What do you do with them then? Is that a tea as well?
Not just a tea. I can use it in pestos. I can use it in soups. I use it as an herb. I mix it with Himalayan salt. I season my food with it. I have a ton of my own wild harvested herbs that I use as my own seasoning. And I use it interchangeably with different things. I mean, I've made so much pesto this spring because there's just so many great plants and you change it up every time. Yeah, it's like a rich time of the year right now.
Do you find that?
Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
I was just gonna say, do you find that there's like a peppery kind of effect to it, or it's pretty? I don't know. I've eaten the fresh leaves. I just wonder how I could use the dehydrated ones.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I grind them down. I mean, you could mix them with other herbs as well and make your own seasoning. Yeah, it definitely has its own flavor. I have just been eating it so long. For me, it's just natural and normal. It's just so good. We kind of crave it. It's like, yeah. And this time of the year, it's like our favorite. There's just so many things right now. It's so good. Yeah, get creative, find different ways. If you know you love rosemary, mix it with rosemary to start. Or if you know you like thyme, mix it with thyme. You know, start using it on your roast chicken, start using it on your barbecue, start seasoning your salad dressing with it.
I'll ask the parent question. Can I put it in mac and cheese? Because then I can really incorporate it into diet.
I think it would be very noticeable in the mac and cheese because the little ones would go, what's this green stuff in there? Start sneaking it into smoothies.
Yeah.
Smoothies is a great way. That's like the super easy, direct way. Who doesn't love a smoothie? You can always hide it under a strawberry or something. Yeah.
Didn't think of that. So we only have time for one more question, Melissa, and that is, someone wrote, I've been seeing a lot of people online foraging dandelion flowers and frying them. Are the flowers high in nutrients, and how does frying diminish their nutrients?
Like I said, remember, in order to access some of these vitamins, because they're fat soluble, I'm all about fat. Coconut oil, grass-fed butter, avocado oil, cold pressed olive oil, yum, like all the ways. I mean, I bake the petals in a cake. I make a dandelion cake out of it. It is so good. The kids love it. So like the sky's the limit. Oh my gosh. I have a friend who renders plants down and mixes it with chocolate. It's like, dear goodness. Oh, the best way to get your vitamins and fats. Yeah. So yes, I just say yes to all of it. Just get creative. The sky's the limit. Just go for it. Start bringing these foods back into your diet. They're waiting to love on those organs. Your palate has been waiting to be reawakened, and your health will just be, supported in a whole new way.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for a wonderful presentation. We really appreciate having you. And I will follow up with an email. The first 75 are going to get a free tea sample from Melissa. I'm going to follow up with some resources so you can connect with her, and also about natural yard care with the city. And we really appreciate you coming. Please don't forget to fill out the survey. We really appreciate that. And thank you again. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Sheila, and have a great evening and good luck with it all.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. I don't know if you can see the chat, but you're just getting a lot of kudos. I think this was just really appreciated.
Wonderful.
I think this could have been about a 3-hour class.
I know. I wanted to say, I could have just listened to you for much longer. I'm just so grateful.
Oh, sweet. Well, we have classes here on the farm, and I come to community to teach classes all the time. So if that's something you would like to do, then feel free to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will direct people to your website. And one of the questions that came up, Melissa, I didn't want to put you on the spot, although we still have people in the room. Would you be willing to share your presentation?
Sure.
So if you save it as a PDF and send it to me,
Okay.
I will share it with the follow-up email.
Okay. So we only got through 3 plants.
Oh, and you can just send me the 3 plants, or you can send me the whole presentation, whatever works for you, or you can just send the whole thing to me and I'll edit it.
Okay, great.
Whatever works best for you.
I kind of knew we were only going to get through about 3 because there's so much.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have talked about 20, but you can only take in so much.
I know. Next time we'll do an hour and a half.
Yeah. Great. I thought it was an hour and a half. That's what I had planned for. No worries. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Melissa. Have a good evening too. Bye, Amanda.
Bye, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
I don't know how to kick anybody out,
I
so
think
we can either do this the quick, fast, and ugly way, but we'll say good night, everybody. And please, if you had any questions, feel free to email Sheila and I.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I didn't catch it.
Hey,
All right,
Amanda,
take
thank
care.
you for everything.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sheila,
You
and I'll
bet.
see you tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.